It is Friday, August 11th. Let's talk PlayStation. Replacement light bulb for the studio lighting is still not in just yet, so you get to enjoy one more week of a slightly darker room than usual. But we still have some news stories to discuss regarding PlayStation, if you didn't know, and we'll get into that first one right away, which is microtransactions for Gran Turismo Sport, which means that there's actually not going to be any in there whatsoever. Kazunori Yamauchi, the game's director and producer, recently commented there's going to be no microtransactions for GT Sport, unlike previously with GT6, which had a lot of microtransactions. He kind of cited that as saying poor performance there for the reason for them not being in this upcoming game, which is great. Obviously, microtransactions are like sort of an insidious way to make money. People don't really like them at all, understandably. I've never had a huge problem with them. My thing is always, if you don't want it, don't buy it. Speak with your dollar. Don't just don't buy something if you don't want it. And seems to be the case here because people weren't really digging in them or paying for them in GT6, so the result is none here. Moving into a release date announcement for Horizon Zero Dawn, The Frozen Wilds, the first DLC for Horizon, is going to be coming out November 7th, so there you go. There's a release date. Nothing more than that. Pretty straightforward. If you're looking forward to that, you can expect it then. But how about some price drop discussion, huh? So I guess coming up this week, a lot of retailers right now are listing in the US that the PlayStation 4, the 500GB Uncharted 4 bundle is going to be going down to $270. Now, normally I wouldn't talk about something like this. Actually, there's a lot of times where PS4 will have some sort of retailer sale of like $250, or maybe it'll stay at $300, which is the MSRP currently, but they'll bundle in another controller or more games or something like that. This normally isn't a big deal, but multiple retailers are lowering it to $270, and they're listing it quote-unquote as a new low price, which would sort of imply that the MSRP is being officially cut down to $270. So no matter what, you wouldn't be able to find this thing more than $270, granted, unless the retailer threw in more things or something. But yeah, so this might mean an imminent official price cut to the 500GB bundle. Maybe they're just trying to sort of push units out to just make the 1TB standard. We'll find out what Sony's doing, but this might entail some sort of general strategy regarding pricing schemes for PlayStation 4. I would assume an official MSRP cut would be great, down to, I would hope, $250 officially, but now it's like looking around, $269. So we don't know if they're going to be moving out a unit and making the new 1TB baseline or something. We'll just have to wait and see. Something else that we still have to wait and see on is Sony's approach to cross-network play. So recently, Microsoft's Mike Ybarra was replying to, this was on Twitter, he was replying to a Game Informer tweet regarding that was linking to an article about the subject of cross-network play, and Mike Ybarra basically had this to say: "Our data shows that people want larger multiplayer pools of people to play with and the choice to play together. This isn't going away." So Microsoft's staying pretty firm on the fact that they want to make cross-network play a sort of reality, and they're not sort of backing down from this sort of approach. Psyonix, working on Rocket League, is still always saying that they're talking to Sony left and right every single day to try to make this work. And Microsoft, I guess, is in sort of the same scenario where they're talking to Sony and trying to get something to sort of get figured out for Sony to allow this. As we've had more time to sort of sit on this, it seems pretty clear that Sony isn't backing down. If they didn't have something to sort of say from their initial comment that Jim Ryan said about sort of protecting their online community, which was half-assed sort of response to cover their own asses, more or less. It seems pretty much like they're set in stone here. Like, they're sort of not going to back down from this. They don't want to. They're not interested in doing cross-network play right now. And it dials back to the conversation we had at that time, which is that Sony isn't really in a position to allow it anyway. Like, there's really no benefit for them. There's not really a sort of situation, I think, where this would, it's good-natured fun to the consumer and whatnot, but they don't have to offer that right now. They stand to lose more than anything else. They don't stand to really gain anything from this. So that's just me looking at it from their perspective. I'm not necessarily defending their decision, but you'd have to figure there's really no reason for Sony to allow it at this point, considering they have the most units out there. And realistically, when you have the most units out there and you have the most people playing in that circle, that means those people have to buy PS4s to play in that online community, and Sony wants to sell PlayStation 4s. It just seems as of right now, Sony's not going to budge on this, and we probably won't see them comment on this again for quite a while. Now let's move on to Crash Bandicoot: The Insane Trilogy. Yes, we're going to talk about this once again because the Activision CEO, Eric Hirshberg, went into a little bit more further detail about it. I guess more specifically detailing just how well the game did. I mean, we sort of discussed that already, but now he's being more open about the fact that the game did way better than they initially thought it would. And once again, sort of blurring the lines between, is it a vocal minority that wants the game, or is there genuinely a lot of people that want to buy this? And sure enough, that was the case. A lot of people wanted to buy it. But basically, he kind of more or less confirmed that, yeah, you can expect something like this more often. And it was kind of a twofold sort of scenario. He kind of discussed a little bit how you can expect a situation where we might explore older games again and sort of bring them back. And he also sort of went into even further detail, saying this might be a situation where we can reflect on old IP and see if we can birth them onto new platforms. Now, this can be sort of read in, I don't know, I would say two ways. One thing being maybe to bring back an old IP like Crash Bandicoot, but bring it as an original, completely new original game for, let's say, current generation consoles. So it'd be a new Crash Bandicoot game, but it wouldn't be a remaster at all. It would be a completely new original game. Or he kind of, and this is sort of where he's probably leaning more towards, and this is not the really good part. He kind of compared it to something like Skylanders. He's like, oh, what if we take a old IP and do something like it with Skylanders on new platforms, which would imply like mobile or something with like Skylanders. That's kind of what he compared it to, which was not the most ideal scenario, right? We don't really want Crash Bandicoot to be put onto mobile or to be put into or shoehorned into another sort of ridiculous Skylanders thing. I mean, sure, it makes a lot of money for them, and I understand that, but a lot of us that enjoy traditional Crash Bandicoot or traditional whatever the hell Activision still owns, which, let's face it, I still want that Spyro remaster. I would love an original new Spyro game, or I would definitely love a Spyro remaster, but point being, we want to see that kind of stuff come back. We want to see more of that. We don't want to see more Skylander stuff, and they're sort of edging towards that, which is not really favorable. Moving on to our final news story, we got Firmware 5.0 details. Looks like Eurogamer got a little transcript of patch notes that are going to be in 5.0, sort of showing off the actual features that we can expect. And if you didn't see this already, kind of underwhelming for the most part. I think a lot of us were really hoping for some major things that we can really sort of find useful, and there are some useful things, but yeah, it's kind of underwhelming. Anyway, headlining features for 5.0 as of right now, it seems like if you're a PlayStation 4 Pro user, you're looking at Twitch streaming for 1080p 60 frames per second coming up in 5.0. So that's, if you're into that, that's great, but it's limited to just PS4 Pro users. One thing that I guess this is probably the most useful feature to me, but you can follow anybody on PSN now. So if you didn't notice, if you see a verified PSN account, which is usually a developer or some sort of game journalist or whoever notable in the video game industry, you can follow them without having to add them as a friend, and you can sort of still see their game library and all that jazz and what they're doing and whatnot. So you can do that with anybody now, which I guess is the most useful to me because I've hit the max friends limit at this point, and it's kind of hell managing that many friends on PSN. So normally if somebody asks me to add them, I just can't do it, or I'm not going to go through the trouble of figuring it out. So if now people can follow me or whatever, that's all well and good, but I can understand how most people probably wouldn't care much for that. You'll have the ability to block certain people from that feature. You'll also have the ability to either make it so only your friends can follow you or just anyone can follow you, so you can sort of toggle that. Notifications have been added to the quick menu, so you can go to the quick menu and sort of access notifications and things like that there. There's now push notifications directly for things like comments and community notifications, so you can sort of skip right to that if you'd like. There's a lot of a whole sort of suite of family account features now. So they're doing a whole family account thing where there's sort of great management between the master account and the sub accounts. You can do things like having sort of you can set it to sort of a parent guardian role for like a master account and manage individual sub accounts. Give them sort of a spending limit, tell them what they can't and can't open. I would assume that's how that's mostly going to work. There's going to be support for 7 more languages. You can actually, in PlayStation communities, you can link to broadcasts now. I'm sure there may be 1 or 2 more little features in there that we'll get some more information on once the people are actually beta testing it and whatnot, and footage gets released and everything. So that, for the most part, is what you should expect, which really, yeah, it's just... I feel like a lot of that is not something that most people would really care about, or it kind of focuses on, a certain separate, minute amount of people. And I guess, the languages thing, I'm sure, is very important to a lot of people. That's something you kind of take for granted if your language is already on the system. Parent and guardians, if people want to use that, I get it. Again, the following thing, good for somebody like me. I don't know how many other people are really into that. If you want to go ahead and follow a bunch of accounts. And again, the Twitch thing, specific, how many people stream? Not many, but if you're into it, there you go. It's just, you know what, it seems more like a 0.5 firmware update instead of a, you know, 0.0 update, you know what I mean? Like, this doesn't seem like a very headlining firmware update. Like, this isn't really going to wow people. I would hope down the road they're finally working on some sort of way to do with the PS1 Classics or the store wish list or, God forbid, name changes. People want these things. Sony does acknowledge them. It's just, there's still nothing here. Those are just some of the news stories I want to talk about with you guys this week. You know, usually I have things to tell you at the end of the week, but I really don't have much for you still. I've been super busy. I'm sure once summer kind of ends off and I stop sort of having vacations and enjoying myself, I'll be more responsible, I guess, and make more content. But for now, we'll stick with the Let's Plays and LTPS. But trust me, there is stuff being filmed. It just takes me longer than most people since I don't do this for a living. But hang in there with me and you'll see some more stuff relatively soon, if not in a month or two from now. Anyway, that concludes this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation. I'm Ryan Bandicoot. Thank you all so much for talking with me, and I will see you guys next Friday.